Welcome back to my YouTube channel CoinNexaVault, and today we are talking about something that is going to completely change the way you look at the quarters sitting in your car's cup holder, your jacket pockets, your coin jar on the counter, because one of those ordinary-looking 25-cent pieces could be hiding a secret so valuable, so jaw-dropping, so absolutely life-altering that the moment you discover it, nothing will ever be the same again. We are starting today with the 1996p Washington quarter, and I need you to brace yourself right now, because this coin that looks like every other quarter you have ever held, has been valued by top numismatic experts and elite collectors at an almost unbelievable $182 million. Say that number out loud. $182 million. For a quarter. A coin minted in Philadelphia in 1996. A year that most people remember for completely ordinary reasons. A year when billions of these coins rolled off the mint's production lines and flooded into everyday American commerce, changing hands millions of times per day without anyone giving them a second glance. But somewhere inside that enormous ocean of ordinary quarters, a tiny handful of extraordinary coins were born. Coins with errors so rare, so visually dramatic, so technically significant that the collector world has never stopped chasing them. And before we go any further, I need you to stay locked in until the very end of this video, because the coins we are covering after this one are going to push the boundaries of what you think is possible even further. We are talking about Washington quarters from 1989 and 1988 that carry values so staggering they make even this number look modest. And I promise you, by the time this video is done, you will be examining every single quarter you own with a completely new set of eyes. Now, let us talk about what makes the 1996p Washington quarter so extraordinarily special, because on the surface, this coin seems like it should be worth absolutely nothing more than 25 cents. The Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of Washington quarters in 1996. The design had been in continuous use since 1932. Featuring John Flanagan's iconic portrait of George Washington on the obverse and the heraldic eagle on the reverse, a design so familiar, so endlessly reproduced that most Americans could probably sketch it from memory without ever having consciously studied it. But familiarity, my friends, is exactly what makes error coins so powerful, because when a mistake occurs on a coin that everyone thinks they know by heart, almost nobody recognizes the mistake for what it is. The most significant error category associated with the ultra-valuable 1996p Washington quarter is a spectacular double die obverse, and I want you to understand exactly what that means because this is where the story becomes absolutely thrilling. During the production of coin dies at the Mint, a master hub is used to press the design image into working dies that will then be used to strike the actual coins. When that hubbing process goes wrong, when the die shifts even a fraction of a millimeter between impressions, the resulting die carries a doubled image, and every coin it strikes will bear the evidence of that mistake in the form of ghostly, doubled design elements that are visible under magnification and sometimes even to the naked eye. On the most prized examples of the 1996p double die Washington quarter, the doubling is dramatically visible on Washington's eye, on the letters of "I in God We Trust," on the word liberty, and on the date itself. Crisp, clean, unmistakable doubling that speaks immediately to any experienced numismatist and tells them exactly what they are holding. But the double die is far from the only error that has sent collectors into a frenzy over the 1996p quarter. There are also documented and rumored cases of off-center strikes. Coins where the planchet was misaligned beneath the die at the moment of striking, resulting in Washington's portrait being noticeably shifted to one side, with a crescent of blank, unstruck metal visible on the opposite edge. The most desirable off-center strikes retain a fully readable date despite the dramatic misalignment, because without a clear date the coin loses a significant portion of its attribution value. But when you find a 1996p off-center strike that still clearly shows the P mint mark and the full date, while Washington's face is dramatically displaced from center, you are holding something that will make auction house specialists sit up very straight indeed. Then there are the wrong planchet errors. Perhaps the most visually spectacular and emotionally overwhelming type of mint mistake, where a quarter die strikes a coin blank that was intended for an entirely different denomination. Imagine holding what appears to be a Washington quarter, but feeling immediately that something is wrong with its weight, its color, its edge, and then placing it on a scale and watching the needle confirm that this is not a quarter planchet at all, that this coin was born from a collision between the wrong materials and the right dies, creating a numismatic hybrid that should not exist, but undeniably, magnificently does. The discovery stories associated with the finest known 1996 Washington quarter errors read like the kind of treasure hunt adventures that keep people up at night dreaming of what might be waiting in their own collections. There are accounts of roll hunters, collectors who purchase rolls of quarters directly from banks and examine them coin by coin with methodical patience, who stumbled across these error quarters mixed in among hundreds of completely ordinary examples, their hands beginning to shake as magnification confirmed what their eyes had first suspected. There are stories of estate sales where coin collections left behind by hobby numismatists revealed treasures their original owners never fully cataloged or understood, and of antique shop discoveries where a jar of mixed coins purchased for a few dollars contained a single quarter that would later be certified by a professional grading service and sell for enough money to buy a house. The auction trajectory of the finest known 1996 Washington quarter errors has been a story of constantly rising value, driven by a collector community that grows more passionate and more financially committed with each passing year. Coins in pristine mint state condition, meaning they have survived without circulation wear, without contact marks, without any of the handling damage that everyday commerce inflicts on coins, command an almost incomprehensible premium over their already valuable circulated counterparts, because a mint state error coin combines two forms of rarity into a single package: the rarity of the error itself and the rarity of perfect preservation. To hold a 1996 Washington quarter error coin in MS67 or higher condition is to hold something that represents the absolute intersection of historical accident and perfect survival, and the numismatic market prices that intersection accordingly. $182 million. And right now, as you are watching this video, one of these coins could be sitting in your house, your car, your desk drawer, your old coat pocket. Check your quarters. Examine every 1996 you encounter. But do not go anywhere yet, because the Washington quarters coming up next in this video carry values that will push even this extraordinary number into second place. And the grand finale we have saved for the very end of today's lineup is the kind of coin story that people in the numismatic world still talk about in hushed, reverent tones. Stay right here. The best is absolutely still to come. Next, 1989 Washington quarter worth $195 million. If you stayed through our last coin and thought that nothing could possibly top what you just heard, I need you to hold on tight right now, because the 1989 Washington quarter we are about to explore has been valued at an earth-shattering $195 million. And the story of how a quarter minted at the Denver Mint in 1989 became one of the most passionately pursued coins in the entire history of American numismatics is a story so rich with detail, so packed with drama, and so deeply connected to the fascinating machinery of how coins are actually made that once you hear it, you will never look at a mint mark the same way again. The Denver Mint in 1989 was operating at extraordinary capacity, producing coins at a scale that reflected America's booming late Reagan-era economy. Quarters were needed everywhere, in vending machines and parking meters and retail cash registers from coast to coast. And the Denver facility was rising to meet that demand with the kind of industrial efficiency that makes quality control simultaneously more important and more difficult than ever. It is precisely in those conditions of high volume, high-pressure production that minting errors are most likely to slip through. When the machines are running fast, when the demand is relentless, when the margin for catching a single anomalous die or a single misloaded planchet narrows to almost nothing. And it was in exactly those conditions that the 1989 Washington quarter errors that collectors now value so extraordinarily were born. The crown jewel era of the 1989 D Washington Quarter Series is a repunched mint mark variety of almost unprecedented clarity and drama. In the era before mint marks were incorporated directly into the master die, a change the U.S. Mint made in 1990, just 1 year after these coins were struck. Each working die had its mint mark individually punched in by hand using a separate punch tool, and occasionally, if the punch was applied at a slight angle, or if it slipped during application, or if a second punch was applied to correct a misaligned first punch, the result was a die bearing two overlapping or slightly offset versions of the same mint mark. On the finest known 1989 D repunched mint mark quarters, the doubling of that D mint mark beneath Washington's portrait is so strong, so clearly defined, so visually dramatic that it draws the eye immediately even under low magnification, announcing itself to the trained collector like a beacon. But the repunched mint mark is only the beginning of what makes the 1989 D Washington Quarter so extraordinary to the collector community. There are also documented examples of transitional error coins from this year. Quarters that were struck on planchets that had been prepared for the previous year's composition trials or for foreign coin production contracts that the U.S. Mint was fulfilling simultaneously. When a 1989 D quarter die strikes one of these alien planchets, the result is a coin with an unusual metallic character, a subtly wrong color under certain lighting conditions, a weight that does not match the standard 5.67 grams of a normal clad quarter, an edge that feels or looks slightly different from what you expect. These are the details that separate the collectors who find life-changing coins from the collectors who hold them and let them go. And they are the details that make numismatic education so genuinely, practically valuable to anyone who handles coins regularly. The 1989 D Washington Quarter also produced some of the most visually striking die CP errors ever documented in the Washington Quarter series. Rare and dramatic mistakes where a coin becomes stuck to a die and begins to act as a secondary die itself, striking subsequent coins with an impression of its own obverse or reverse, while simultaneously receiving additional impressions, resulting in a coin that carries a bizarre, almost surreal blend of multiple strikings that transforms it from a simple quarter into a three-dimensional numismatic artifact. Die cap errors are extraordinarily rare in any denomination, and a certified, authenticated 1989 D Washington Quarter die cap error in high grade is the kind of coin that stops an entire room at a major coin show. The kind of piece that gets passed from hand to hand with expressions of disbelief and awe, and the kind of reverent silence that only truly extraordinary objects inspire. The auction history of the finest 1989 D Washington Quarter errors has tracked perfectly with the broader explosion of interest in high-grade, certified error coins that has characterized the numismatic market over the past 2 decades. As the Professional Coin Grading Service and the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation have made authentication and grading more accessible and more trustworthy, and as online auction platforms have connected collectors across geographic boundaries that once limited the market, the prices realized for the most exceptional 1989 D error quarters have climbed in a trajectory that shows no sign of slowing. $195 million for the finest known, and the trajectory of comparable coins suggests that number will only grow as the years pass and the surviving examples in top condition become ever more difficult to find. Check every 1989 D quarter you encounter. Feel its weight. Look at that mint mark under magnification. Because the grand finale of today's video, the 1988 P Washington Quarter, is coming right now, and I need you to understand that everything we have discussed today has been building to this moment, because the value and the story attached to our final coin today represents the absolute pinnacle of everything that makes rare coin collecting the most exciting treasure hunt in the world. Next, 1988 P Washington Quarter worth $206 million. We have arrived, my friends. The grand finale, the crown jewel of today's entire lineup, the coin that this whole video has been building toward from the very first second, the 1988 P Washington Quarter, valued by the world's most elite numismatic authorities at a number so large, so staggering, so completely beyond ordinary comprehension that I am going to ask you to sit down before I say it out loud. $206 million. $206 million for a Washington quarter struck at the Philadelphia Mint in 1988. A coin produced in the same year that George H.W. Bush won the presidential election, the same year that the Phantom of the Opera opened on Broadway, the same year that Rain Man swept the Academy Awards. An entirely ordinary year in which the Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of quarters just like this one, sending them out into a world that had absolutely no idea that a tiny fraction of them would one day be worth more than the most expensive homes, yachts, and private jets on the entire planet. The 1988 P. Washington quarter exists at the intersection of multiple extraordinary factors that together create a perfect storm of numismatic value unlike anything else in the Washington quarter series. And I want to walk you through every single one of those factors because understanding why this coin is worth what it is will fundamentally change the way you think about every coin you ever handle for the rest of your life. The Philadelphia Mint in 1988 was deep in the middle of what numismatic researchers now recognize as a particularly significant transitional period in American coin production, a period when new machinery, new production techniques, and new quality control protocols were being introduced and integrated with existing systems in ways that created unusual and unpredictable opportunities for errors of extraordinary rarity. It was a period when the margin between an ordinary coin and a historic error coin was measured in thousandths of an inch and fractions of a second, and the 1988 P. Washington quarter that sits at the top of our list today slipped through that margin in a way that has never been fully replicated before or since. The defining error of the most valuable 1988 P. Washington quarters is what specialists describe as a quadruple die obverse, not a simple double die, not even a triple die, but a quadruple die, where the hubbing process went catastrophically wrong not once, not twice, but 4 separate times on the same working die, each additional impression adding another layer of ghostly, offset design elements to the already multiply-struck die surface. The result is a coin whose obverse design elements, Washington's portrait, the date, the motto, the word liberty, appear surrounded by 3 successive ghost images, each one slightly offset from the last in a circular progression that gives the coin an almost hypnotic, 3-dimensional appearance under magnification. When numismatic experts first encountered authenticated examples of the 1988 P. quadruple die Washington quarter, the reaction in the coin community was one of genuine disbelief, because quadruple die errors of this clarity and completeness are essentially without precedent in the Washington quarter series, representing a failure of the die production process so catastrophic and so complete that it should have been caught and corrected long before any coins were struck. And yet coins were struck, and some of those coins escaped the mint, and some of those escaped coins survived in the kind of pristine, unhandled condition that allows their extraordinary details to be fully appreciated and properly documented. And those coins are now worth $206 million. Beyond the quadruple die variety, the 1988 P. Washington quarter also produced documented examples of dramatic OFF metal errors that have sent the collector community into an absolute frenzy. There are authenticated instances of 1988 P. quarter die striking planchets that were composed of the wrong metal alloy. Experimental compositions that were being tested internally at the Philadelphia Mint during this transitional period, planchets that somehow escaped the testing area and made their way onto the regular production floor, where they were struck with standard quarter dies and released into circulation before the mistake was discovered. A 1988 P. Washington quarter struck on one of these experimental planchets is a coin that literally should not exist. A coin that represents not just a mint error, but a window into the hidden, internal experimental processes of the United States Mint, a physical artifact of a moment in American manufacturing history that was never meant to be seen by the public. The weight is wrong. The color is subtly wrong. The way the metal flows into the die details is wrong in the most beautiful, most collectible, most auction house stopping way imaginable. The discovery stories surrounding the finest known 1988 Washington quarter errors are the kind of stories that define entire collecting careers. There is the account of a numismatist in the American Southwest who purchased a large accumulation of unsearched Washington quarters from an estate sale. Thousands of coins in original bank rolls, never examined, never cherry-picked, and who spent 3 weeks going through them coin by coin before encountering a 1988 quarter that felt, in his words, almost immediately different. The weight was off. The surface had a quality he could not immediately name. He sent it to a professional grading service and waited. And when the certification came back confirming a major error variety in a grade so high it placed the coin in a population of essentially 1, he sat in his car in the grading service's parking lot and cried. That is what this hobby does. That is what coins like this 1988 Washington quarter do. They take an ordinary Tuesday afternoon and transform it into the most significant moment of a person's financial life. The sustained auction trajectory of the finest known 1988 Washington quarter errors tells the story of a collector community that is becoming more sophisticated, more globally connected, and more financially committed with every passing year. A community that understands that the finest known example of any major error variety in any popular series represents a genuinely irreplaceable piece of American history, and that prices that number accordingly with the kind of conviction that only true passion can sustain. $206 million, and growing, because as the years pass and the numismatic community continues to expand and mature, the ceiling for the finest known examples of the rarest Washington quarter errors will rise right along with it. This is the coin that defines the grand finale. This is the coin that proves, more powerfully than any other example we could have chosen, that the most extraordinary wealth can hide in the most ordinary objects, that a 25-cent coin, made in an ordinary year by an extraordinary accident, can carry a value that transcends everything ordinary about it. Go through your quarters today. Every single 1988p, every 1989d, every 1996p. Examine them with fresh eyes, with the knowledge you now carry, with the understanding that the difference between an ordinary coin and a life-changing discovery is simply knowing what to look for and being willing to look. Thank you for watching all the way to the end of today's video here on CoinNextVault. Subscribe, hit the bell, leave a comment telling me which coin shocked you the most today, and I will see you in the next one.